inside story on the issues that affect you and your community. This is Local 12 Newsmakers.
Good morning and welcome to Local 12 Newsmakers. I'm Dan Hurley. Over the last 18 months, a host of local not-for-profit organizations have seen turnover in their leadership. In that process, a generation of community leaders who have worked for decades to shape this community, from Charlene Ventura at the YWCA to Sally Westheimer at 4C for Children to Kathy Merchant at the Greater Cincinnati Foundation to Mary McCullough Hudson at the Arts Wave, have all retired. Included in that group is Bob Meekum, who joined Lighthouse Youth Services 40 years ago when it served just 16 people a day. Under Meekum's direction, Lighthouse grew from a fledgling effort into a multi-service organization with modern facilities and professional staff serving children, youth, and families statewide, and having a national reputation for its work with homeless youth, juvenile corrections, independent living, and foster care. In August, after 3 years of transition planning, Bob Meekum turned over the reins of leadership to Paul Haffner. I am joined this morning by Mr. Haffner, the new president and CEO of Lighthouse Youth Services. Mr. Haffner is an attorney by background, most recently with Calfee, Halter, and Griswold, and previously in-house with Great American Insurance. He is the board chair for the Cincinnati Nature Center as well as CEO of Lighthouse. Paul, welcome.
Thanks,
to
Dan.
Newsmakers, and congratulations on this new role.
Thank you.
It's a big step.
It's a huge step and a
For
tremendous
people
honor.
who only know Lighthouse sort of from a distance or think they know it, how would you describe Lighthouse today?
So Lighthouse, when I knew it back in the early 90s, it was the Lighthouse Runaway Shelter. That's the brand recognition that everybody seems to have. What Bob did over 40 years was grow program after program, got us into juvenile justice. So we are a provider of both diversion, alternative to placement, and reentry services for juvenile justice, and then an entire component of children, youth, and family services, Help Me Grow, foster care, youth housing opportunities. We are doing so much in the community. We run our own community school and our behavioral health component. We are out and about in so many areas that touch so many different people and families.
How many people are employed by Lighthouse?
So we have 590 full and part-time employees, which I choked on when I was interviewing.
590.
Right, and in the world of full-time equivalents, it works out to about 310 FTEs for those that track that kind of metric. But we, every 2 weeks, a lot of paychecks go out of Lighthouse, and it is a significant institution, a lot of licensed staff and youth workers and case managers, and then a significant administration that is professional managers from a lot of for-profit background as well as not-for-profit.
So when you're out talking to people who maybe only have that older view of Lighthouse as this emergency shelter, what are the one or two programs, and on the website people can see this too, and we'll let people know about that, but what are the one or two programs that you love to talk about, that you, on a personal level, really feel moved by?
Well, so the foster care and adoption has been exploding. So over the last several years, we have gone from less than 100 children in the care of our foster families to, as recently as last month, it was 245 children in our care.
Meaning Lighthouse is supervising 245 children.
Correct. We recruit, license, and retain our foster families. So the foster families have a choice of which agency they want to work with. So we do a very good job. We're the largest provider of foster care in Hamilton County by far. It's not even close. And we love the relationship that we have both with Hamilton County JFS, with Director Weir and her staff, and with all of our foster families. So 245 was the number. The good news is that number went down because November was adoption month. So we had several of our children adopted into loving families, and our director, Jamie Clark, does a fantastic job. I would talk about all of our programs if we had time, but we do need to talk about the Shakely Center for Youth. That is our 18 to 24-year-old homeless youth complex that was shown actually in the intro piece you had. And due to the generosity of the Shakely family, we were able to open that in 2012. and that serves, that's a 28-bed shelter and day resource center that we are now moving to the new Shakely Center complex, if we want to get into that right now.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so this is the new facility on Iowa Street. This is a near $20 million capital investment in Walnut Hills on Iowa Street, just a block and a half from our McMillan headquarters. So the first floor will be the existing Shakely Center on Highland will move into the first floor of this building. And then these top 3 floors are 39 new permanent supportive housing apartment units for homeless or youth at risk of homelessness, all 18 to 24. And our staff will be moving in to offices all along this tower with a beautiful beaming lighthouse coming out of the top. So people
Gee, I
know
wonder
where
why
they're
that is. Oh, lighthouse,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
Okay, so when you say these, when you point out to these apartments, so what would a young person, 18 to 24,
Correct.
what would be, I don't know if typical is the right term, but what would be potential background of a person who might be coming into there, and then how long can they stay once they're there?
So the shelter, the average length of stay in our shelter is a few, anything more than a few months is, you want to know why. We're taking people into shelter, we're establishing a case management plan for them. They are then working their plan with an exit strategy always on the horizon. Part of that exit strategy is our Youth Housing Opportunities program, where we have scattered site apartments, and we actually own 4 of our own apartment buildings with a resident manager. So you're teaching life skills, you're getting these kids ready to live on their own, self-sufficiency, good citizenship, responsible behavior. That's all sub-mission. These 39 apartments, that will give us 39 new units in Cincinnati for these young adults to transition into with a much more supportive clinical environment surrounding them. So, you get them out into the real world, and they might have a resident manager there, but they don't have their community treatment staff there. And so we believe this facility, this is nationally innovative, and we believe that building that sense of community between staff and the youth will help them achieve self-sufficiency.
How has the heroin opioid epidemic impacted the question of the number of young people that you're dealing with, the problems they face? What would you?
The biggest impact that heroin has had on Lighthouse services has been foster care. So that increased exponentially the amount of children that are placed in our care. And it's trended the number down to younger children. So there are a lot of infants that are being pulled out of their homes due to the heroin epidemic. We also have several of our youth that are the teenage to young adult, 13 to 24 segment, that are choosing to use alcohol, other drugs, heroin being a part of that suite of products that we are challenged by every day. And Lighthouse does what we can. We are definitely in the AOD service business, but there are other agencies like Talbot House that have been doing wonderful work in that field already.
That would be your partners.
Sure.
On many
We
things.
definitely refer back and forth. There's a lot of collaboration in the not-for-profit world, and I think there can be more looking forward. I'm excited about that.
When I introduced you, I made the point that your background was as a lawyer.
Yep.
Right up until August.
Right.
Why, as a lawyer, did you, at this stage of your life, want to do this? And did the skills that you learned as a lawyer translate?
Absolutely. So one really important thing, though, is because I had to do this when I interviewed with the board, I knew that lawyer thing would come up, and I said, I'm not your typical lawyer. I'm a corporate lawyer, which involves a lot of consensus building, facilitation, working in processes and systems to find common ground. No offense to my litigation friends out there, but I always say I bring people together. I don't tear them apart, right? My goal is to always drive towards a common goal. And the other thing I did at Great American was Great American provided me an opportunity to run a $30 million book of business. So I left the law behind for almost 6 years, and under the tutelage of many great mentors there, was able to learn what it meant to run a profit and loss statement, hire and unfortunately fire on occasion, and do all of the IT projects and work through board of director presentations, where we were trying to, boy, our distribution channel in that world was independent agents. So that skill, both as a business manager and as a lawyer, being a collaborative lawyer, bringing people together, I am using all of those skills maxed out. It has been wonderful. I mean, the transition has been better than I ever could have imagined. But yes, I'm definitely using my lawyer skills. I've got a good one for you on that if you'd like it.
Sure.
Okay, so, because I know this was an issue near and dear, foster care that you've talked about with Director Weir before. We were able to pass legislation in Ohio this year, foster care to 21, extended foster care. You've talked on this show before about children aging out of the foster care system,
right,
which is one of those evils that we had, and we fixed that in Ohio. So Governor Kasich signed that in June. Lighthouse, along with several government partners and Greater Cincinnati Foundation and statewide partners, our trade association, made that a government relations push. And lobbyists were involved and lawyers were involved, and we got it done. And now Lighthouse is one of the agencies that is working to implement the regulations. As you know, you pass a law, great. Now,
right,
how's it really going to work?
Right, right.
So we have until December of 2017 in a collaborative steering committee at the state level that will figure out how to really make this function.
Well, as the son of someone who was trained as a lawyer but never practiced, but always talked about how important it was to be a lawyer, and as the father of a lawyer, yes, who works in the public sector but doesn't practice law in the traditional sense, right, I have no doubt that lawyers bring lots of skills to this area, or can, if they're the right person and right. But what is it that drove you as a person to make a change? You were on a career path, you were doing great.
Right.
Why make a change into something in the not-for-profit sector?
So that is a two-part answer. So the first is, and I would tell people that it was 6 years of thought and 6 months of action. So I knew in my heart back in 2010 or 11 that I was going to be making a change, and I had lots and lots of clients and over the years, and I was serving on boards of directors with executive directors or CEOs of non-for-profits, and I was watching what they do and watching their engagement in the community and with their boards of directors and the variety of decisions that they were making and how engaged they were in their work, and I started getting, curious about that role and what it might mean. But then those inertia and other things like economic reasons, all the reasons you shouldn't make a job change were still weighing
right
on me. 2 kids that are getting ready to go to college, that played a role in it. And then I got to a point where I said, and let me go back to last year at this time. I was privileged to be a member of your last Leadership Cincinnati class.
A great class.
And we were talking, and during those breaks and meeting with people in the not-for-profit world that were part of my class, I'm talking to them, and again, those windows start opening up, and I mentioned to one of them, do you think I could do the role, a similar role to what you're doing? And that started conversation after conversation and networking and confidence building that I really was on the right path, and I did belong in this world. And I spent then lots of reflection and self-reflection, and it's the topic of another Sunday show, but there was certainly a inspiration from above element to this story that I would love to tell at some point.
One last question.
Yes, sir.
You took over from Bob Meekum.
Hey, Bob.
40 years. You're not just taking over from somebody, you're taking somebody who had been really totally identified with the organization that you were becoming CEO of.
Right.
How did the two of you, how have you handled that?
So that is a fantastic question, and Bob and I did not know each other until the interview cycle, and I got to meet him and got to learn a little bit about what drove him and what made, he is what I call the entrepreneurial CEO, founder, and literally created what Lighthouse is today. And I am now a steward of Bob Meekum's legacy. That is how I've referred to it in board meetings, because you do not come into a situation like this, and this is not a turnaround situation. This is a sustaining success situation. So I am
Build on the shoulders situation.
Absolutely. So I am being handed the reins of something that Bob has worked tirelessly on. I call him a warrior for social justice in Cincinnati. And we have two different ways of leading, but we are closely aligned. So the board actually had us working side by side together at Lighthouse for 2 months, September and October. And then November and December, he is my consultant, and we are having breakfast every Tuesday and lunch every Friday together. And I try to save up my questions for him. And so it has been, he is the most self-aware individual I've ever been around. So Bob knows when he's pushing too hard or pulling, and he helps me, he's guided me, he's taught me, and then he'll also let me do my thing and pushing me out to make sure I can make this my story.
That whole dynamic of leadership, obviously, I've been interested in for a long time. And
Yes, you have.
Congratulations on your new role. Congratulations to Bob for not only all he's done, but for handling with grace the transfer, and that's not easy sometimes.
That is not
and good luck with Lighthouse, and as things developed,
Yes.
let's have you back here.
I'd love to come back.
Okay, very
Thank you,
good.
Dan.
To learn more about Lighthouse and its services, go to the website www.lys.org or call 513-221-3350 to make a referral. Stay tuned. After the break, the future for a newly remodeled Memorial Hall. Welcome back. In 1908, Memorial Hall opened on Elm Street and over the Rhine as a tribute to the veterans of American wars, from the War for Independence through the Spanish-American War. But for half a century, Memorial Hall has been underutilized, ill-equipped to host modern events, especially compared to Music Hall, its immediate neighbor to the north. Last Friday, 3CDC completed an $11 million renovation of Memorial Hall, which promises to bring it into the 21st century. Local 12 reporter Joe Webb was there for a first look inside.
Today's ribbon cutting at Memorial Hall is just the latest project coming to life. An $11 million renovation brings the 1908 building comfortably into the 21st century.
Every surface of this building has been touched, so all the fantastic artisanship, the paint, the masonry has all been really restored throughout the building.
First floor ballrooms that once hosted meetings of Civil War and Spanish-American War veterans are updated exhibit and event space, today filled with Brickmas, a holiday attraction built with Legos. The second and third floor Anderson Auditorium is beautifully redone but not made over. It looks much the same, just newer and cleaner, but it is not the same. The improvements are there, unnoticed until showtime.
We've got back of the house kind of technology that's state of the art. So whether it's the ability to put movies on the screen or to have the best artists with the best audio, sound, and the acoustics, we've done it all in the building. It's ready to go.
They've already booked everything from Roseanne Cash to RuPaul. The renovation paid attention to all details and the bottom line, literally. These seats in the theater look old, but they're new and they're a little bit wider to accommodate a 21st century bottom. They also work for mid-20th century bottoms.
I am joined now by Joshua Steele, the manager of Memorial Hall. Mr. Steele has been involved with local theaters and teaches voice at the Northern Kentucky University. Welcome to Newsmakers.
Thanks.
And congratulations on Memorial Hall.
Thank you very much.
It looks great.
Thanks.
Okay, here's my first question. What about the audio? I mean, the auditorium is beautiful.
Yeah.
But there has always been a problem with sound in that auditorium.
Yeah.
Have you solved it?
I think so. I do think naturally that hall is one of the great acoustic spaces in this town. So the challenge is, how do you introduce amplification without just blowing it out, right? So actually, just a few days ago, there's a company that came up from Texas called SoundBridge, and they spent a whole day doing what they call tuning the speakers. So they make sure that the sound is distributed evenly throughout the hall, that the EQing and such is nice. So it's a nice, warm sound that doesn't interfere.
Well, that's really important because if you're in that hall, I mean, it's such a grand space.
Yes.
I mean, the feeling is there's an emotion that's just created by that space.
Absolutely.
As long as it works.
Yes. Yes.
And we won't go into the details. I've been there where I'm not sure it worked. But that's really good. What sorts of things do you see going forward that Music Hall can be able to be used for?
Memorial Hall.
Memorial Hall, I'm sorry. Memorial Hall will be able to be used for, not only the auditorium, but other parts.
Sure. Well, we're envisioning a wide range of programs, concerts, of course, which has always been a big part of the repertoire there. So we'll be doing both acoustic music concerts and bringing in some A-list artists that are touring artists, some of which were mentioned in the piece. We'll be doing films. We have a new 20-foot projection screen.
Actually, it looked like there were a lot of films.
Laser projector, yeah. So this holiday season in particular, a lot of holiday family films, Elf, Christmas Story, Polar Express, which will complement our Brickmas programming. And then we'll do some artier stuff as we get into 2017 as well. Cincinnati World Cinema will be in, showing their Oscar-nominated short films and documentaries.
So that will be where Cincinnati World Cinema?
Yeah, at least for some of their big screenings. Yeah.
Well, that's great because it's a perfect place.
I think it's a nice fit.
Yeah. And what about down on that first floor, where those two big rooms and that wonderful hallway?
Yeah. So we have these two wonderful ballrooms, about 1,500 square feet each, and it's kind of unique to have a space that has this 550-seat theater and then this great reception space. So we're looking at opportunities to kind of cross-program those. One that comes to mind is Tony and Tina's Wedding, which many folks will recognize. It's a show based out of Chicago, and it's this big fake Italian wedding. So folks go upstairs to the theater, they see this outrageous wedding ceremony, and then they come down and eat lasagna and dance with these actors, and it's an awful lot of fun.
Okay. And is that scheduled?
Yeah. So that'll be end of March, early April.
Okay.
Tickets on sale now.
Well, I'm going to let people know about how to find that. So, and what about can people who want to do a wedding? Could they do it there?
Absolutely, yeah. Memorial's, I think, one of Cincinnati's premier wedding venues. That's always been a big part of what we do. So folks can get married in the theater. They can have their reception downstairs. We can accommodate upwards of 200 people.
So we saw in Joe's piece, and only Joe would think about the seats and whether his butt fits in them. He brought it up, not me. Yeah. He showed there was a quick shot of Brickmas. It looked like trains.
Yeah.
Is that open to the public?
It is.
Is that a way for people to just come in right now
Absolutely.
and sort of figure it out?
Yeah, and that's kind of what we intended. So Brickmas is a 6,000 square foot Lego exhibition. So folks can come in and see this great work by the OKI Lego Builders Group. But most notably in the collection, there is a Lego music hall. And then right next to it, special for Memorial Hall, they've built actually a Lego Memorial Hall. So people can come check that out. It's both in those ballrooms and in our new studio space in the basement, which is a brand new space for us, a new event space, 1,800 square feet. So folks can come check that out. And if you come starting this weekend, you can come upstairs into the theater and see movies. So it is, as you say, a great introduction to this space.
And is there any function here still for veterans? Is there any connection of Memorial Hall to veterans?
Yeah, absolutely. We spent a great deal of time really researching and investing in the collection of art and artifacts that went into the hall. So you have somewhere in the neighborhood of 40 pieces that we've restored that celebrate Civil War history, Spanish-American War history, all of them with local ties. So we have some very rare and interesting pieces.
There are also always wonderful pieces hanging on the wall. Yeah. And back when I was at the Museum Center, not at the Museum Center, at Old Cincinnati Historical Society, 30 plus years ago, we were called in to remove a live shell from the basement. I'm sure it's not there anymore. So.
I haven't seen it.
So anyway, well, congratulations. This looks like it. And let me point out, a lot of people are downtown riding the streetcar right now.
Yeah.
You're right on the streetcar line. You can run in and check this out as a new feature. To find out what's happening at Memorial Hall or to find information about booking an event in the newly refurbished space, check out the website at www.memorialhallotr.org. Thank you for making Newsmakers a part of your Sunday morning. Next Sunday, I'll be joined by the newly elected president who finds himself in the center of the debate about health care. No, not that one, that just flashed your mind, but someone local who now has a national platform. Have a good week.